Hi, my name is Toon and I'm the head chef here at the Recipe for SEO Success. Today I'm super excited to be talking to one of my all-time SEO heroes, Mr. Rand Fishkin from moz.com. Now, if you haven't checked out moz.com, I recommend that you do. It's a fantastic website packed full of search engine optimization tools, resources, and blogs, and a forum, and lots of other great stuff. Rand, who's based in Seattle, is a hugely well-known face in the digital marketing world, known for his easy-to-understand, fun, engaging explanations of all things online marketing, especially his Whiteboard Friday videos. I was lucky enough to briefly meet Rand at Problogger a couple of years ago when he spoke about search engine optimization, and he was actually my inspiration for my little chat about search engine optimization at Problogger last year. So that's enough of me. Let's get on with the interview. So here we are with Mr. Rand Fishkin. Thank you for joining me, Rand.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate it.
Let's get stuck into the questions. So I've got like oodles and oodles of questions. I told everybody I was interviewing you. Everybody kind of freaked out and inundated me with questions. So I've tried to pick some of the best ones. Well, the sort of most that cover the most sort of issues, and yeah, we'll just get started. First question is kind of a general one, but a lot of the people who I talk to have very little time, and they don't have a dedicated SEO person, and they can't afford to pay an SEO company month by month to do stuff for them. So
Sure.
Do you really think it's possible for a small business like that to do their own SEO?
Yeah, I think it certainly is possible. I think a caveat, you will not be doing the same level of SEO as if you hired an SEO professional who was, of great quality and you had, thousands of dollars to spend every month, that kind of thing. But that's okay. For a lot of small businesses, even medium-sized businesses, just getting the first few steps right in SEO, getting those first little pieces, elements of web marketing correct, can be transformative, right? And can make your business so much more visible than it was previously. So I think it is not a necessity to have to spend a ton of money or hire an outside professional. You can do a lot of the basics right yourself.
Yeah, and I think that often companies, it's the basic stuff that they sometimes miss. They kind of want to leap ahead to the sexy stuff. And it's like, you need to cover off those really boring basic bits first. Obviously, Moz is a great education resource for people, and your Whiteboard Friday videos are hugely popular and helpful. What are other resources that you can recommend to people to learn more about SEO?
Yeah, I think that there's a few news sites that I like a tremendous amount that I think for those folks who are interested in kind of staying on top of the news of the search world, those are pretty solid. Those include Search Engine Land and seroundtable.com. I think those are both solid. And then I think that you can get a really good sense of the trending articles or what people are talking about and discussing, what's kind of hot in the world of not just SEO, but web marketing overall on inbound.org. That's full caveat. It's a site that I co-founded, although I'm no longer professionally involved in that. Just, I like to see it do well, obviously, but I don't have any financial interest. And then I think that there are a number of good blogs that contain specific information around topics. So one of the blogs that impresses me a lot, it's a little advanced, but it is quite good, is Viper Chill. Can be a little aggressive at times, but really good information there for sure, and very creative too. Another one that I like a lot, again, can be a little more advanced, but is fascinating for me, is SEO by the Sea from Bill Slawski.
Yeah.
I think he does a terrific job with that. And I'm a big fan of two agency blogs that I think do a really good job of exploring SEO topics regularly. Those are Seer Interactive and Distilled. Both of those companies, really good SEO blog material.
Excellent. Well, I'll search some of those out and include them in the links. I'd love to ask you some of the questions that came through on social media, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot, so we'll see how many we can get through. And apologies to anybody who we don't manage to cover off, because there were quite a few. So the first one is from Twitter, from Digital Cafes, and they ask, what are the top 5 tools that every search marketing or digital marketing business type must use?
Sure. So let's see. I think that you need to have your basic essentials covered. That's kind of the most important thing that you can possibly do. And so I would set my 5 tools, if I only had 5, in that realm. That includes having visitor analytics, knowing how many people are visiting your site, and what pages they're going to, and how they're getting to you, that kind of thing. That includes monitoring your website for sort of what I call errors and missed opportunities. You broke something, or the search engine just can't reach something, or you creating some kind of a problem, so the crawl. I think it's critical that you have keyword research, right? You have to know what your audience is actually searching for so that you can target them with content that's going to help them succeed. So we got to have a good keyword research tool. And then I think it is very helpful to have one of the two, but preferably both, a great tool to help you with link building and or content creation, content strategy and outreach. Yeah. And so my tools for each of these, on the analytics side, Moz uses Omniture, but Omniture is really expensive and a pain in the ass to learn and no fun. I think Google Analytics is still a really strong contender. If you don't love Google Analytics, there's a nice free open source alternative called Piwik, Piwik. I think they're out of New Zealand. Awesome folks. Definitely recommend them and Google Analytics and or Google Analytics. Then on the crawling side, right, sort of find my errors and missed opportunities and problems, that kind of thing. I think Google Webmaster Tools, now called Google Search Console, that's totally free. It's not as comprehensive as you might want, and so I might recommend that you use either, and granted Moz, I have self-interest there, but you can use Moz's crawling tool, which is pretty darn good, will identify lots of errors. That's part of the Moz Analytics package. Or if you're looking for just an exclusively crawl-based tool, Screaming Frog is quite good. It's a downloadable piece of software. Yeah. Let's see, on the keyword research front, I wish I could tell you I have a great tool for you. I'm building one right now. It's going to be launched in the next 6 to 8 weeks. But until then, I would probably use a combination of a couple tools on the free side. One is Google AdWords, where you can use Keyword Planner. It's free. Like, you can sign up for Google AdWords, and you don't have to pay them anything, right? You don't have to buy any ads. You can still use Keyword Planner. And then another one that I like a lot is Uber Suggest.
I love that one.
If you're looking for a paid tool, I like keywordtool.io. And then on the content and link building side, there's kind of 3 players in the link world. All of them have strengths and weaknesses. One is Moz with Open Site Explorer. One is Majestic, who I like a lot. And one is Ahrefs, which a lot of people like. So those 3. And then if you're looking on the content and outreach, Moz content just launched. I think it will be a good tool long term, but right now my favorite by far for sure is BuzzSumo. I think those guys are just terrific. I use that regularly. I know a lot of people in the content world do. So I check those out. So that's kind of my 5 sets of tools.
Awesome. What a great list. And loads of my favorites in there as well. So that's reassuring. That's fab. The next question is from Angela. And she asks, if you only have a few hours a week to spare to focus on SEO and marketing, what would you spend it doing? I mean, let's assume that their site has been technically optimized and they've got a good base. And then ongoing, would you be spending your time building links? And by building, I mean earning, or creating content, or a bit of both?
I think this actually depends. I just did a Whiteboard Friday on this topic. It kind of depends on the distribution curve of demand in your sector. And okay, that sounds fancy. It's not that fancy. What I really am trying to say here is it depends on whether there are a lot of keywords and a lot of people who have all sorts of different needs in your niche, or whether there's really only a few. Like the people who are searching only search for 5 or 10 or maybe 20 or 30 different keywords, and those are the only ones you care about. And the content that's being produced, well, it turns out that in your industry or niche, people don't pay that much attention to all the content. Maybe there's a few things they read every month or every week, but they're not big content consumers in your niche. And so you need to recognize which of those is true for you and for your industry, for your audience, and then optimize how you spend your few hours in the right way. So, if you're a small business and you're targeting local search demand, let's say, for example, you're a Thai restaurant in Seattle, right, which is where I live. So if I'm a Thai restaurant in Seattle, you know what? There's not a ton of searches that I'm going after. Like maybe I could get a little creative and go into the recipe space, but it turns out, people search for Thai restaurants Seattle, Thai takeout Seattle, maybe best Thai food Seattle, but that list is not long, right? It's a real short list. And so I would not urge them to go spend a bunch of time trying to create tons of content and start a blog and all that. I would tell them, hey, focus on those 5 or 10 keywords that bring the highest ROI. And to do that, go after the links and the citations and the listings and the relationships and the referrals that are going to best work for you. And if you are already ranking well, maybe think about some Barnacle SEO, right? Barnacle SEO being, how can I make it so that the other pages that rank in the top 10 for the keywords that I care about also point to me, right? They also include me or link to me. How do I make sure that I'm on the Yelp list for best Thai restaurants in Seattle? How do I make sure that the Seattle Eater Guide to Thai Restaurants includes me, right? All that kind of stuff. So that's how I think about that if you're very small. If, on the other hand, there's a huge world of keyword demand and tons of people are searching for all sorts of different things and there's lots of content being consumed, then I think more about a content strategy with your few hours a week. And I'd worry a little less about targeting, those singular terms and trying to pound on them and get the links to earn those higher rankings for those things. With content strategy, the idea is that you're producing lots of pieces of content and you have a few hits every now and then, and the average piece does a little better than the last average piece, and you're growing an audience and growing links. And all of that is helping you kind of raise the tide of the rankings on your website, right? Google doesn't just consider individual web pages, they consider a site as a whole. And so if you are earning links and ranking signals to all sorts of different pieces of content, every other piece of content is going to benefit from that a little bit, every other piece of content on your site. So that's an overly simplistic way of thinking about it, but that's how I'd prioritize.
No, I think that's great. That makes perfect sense. Good answer. Good answer for Angela there. Okay, and this kind of follows on from that, I guess, because the analogy I always use is a window cleaner in Sydney. There's a window cleaner in Sydney. How many blog posts can you write about window cleaning? And do you even want to be writing content about window cleaning? It's tough. It's maybe not the right strategy for you. But even if you're like a copywriter in Sydney, and there's heaps, there's so much content you can write. A lot of it's been written before, but you can always put your tone on it and your opinion. But there are only so many phrases and there are only so many spots in that first page. Does there come a point where SEO just won't work because the market is too crowded?
I think that there almost always comes a point in which you say, it doesn't make sense right now to target this keyword or these sets of keyword phrases. But there's almost never a time when SEO itself doesn't make sense. So I like your window cleaner example in Sydney. And what I'd urge folks to do, if you actually were a window cleaner, I would urge you to say, what are the other things that people who need window cleaners are also interested in? And I would argue that it's almost always the property manager for a commercial building that's hiring a window cleaner, right? That's 90% of your business. Residential, but it's too small. It's not a big market for window cleaners. It's almost all commercial buildings. Well, commercial property owners have a lot of interests that are not well served, right? They don't understand what the competitive pricing market is like. They don't know historical demand versus demand now. They don't know what the problems that other property managers are facing. They don't really interface with each other all that much. There may not be a great community resource for Sydney commercial property owners and building managers, on the web. You could make that. Like, you could absolutely make that. You wouldn't have to produce lots of content. You could do one survey a year of all the clients that you have and all their network, and you could produce this phenomenal report that every property manager sends to every other property manager, and they're like, oh, this window cleaner guy, he's awesome. He does this survey of 500 buildings in Sydney and produces it every year. You only need one. You only need one of those to start attracting a huge audience. And the nice thing about content is, yes, SEO is one way to reach people with content, but word of mouth, social media, press and PR, these are all great ways of reaching people as well. So if you get a few people signing up for that email that are like, yeah, next year, 2017, sign me up for that list. Right? You know, now you've got a new cohort of people to reach and all that kind of thing. So I never think that you're out of the game entirely, but I do agree that there's a point at which you kind of say, hey, I have a brand new website and I'm competing against the top 10 results who are all, 70 plus in domain authority and have years in the field, and I'll have professional SEOs working for them. I need to take a different angle.
Hello, it's Toon here. I just wanted to take a little break from the episode to tell you about some useful resources that will help you learn more about SEO. The first is my support group on Facebook, a great spot for small businesses to pick up additional advice and tips. Just search for Kate Toon's I Love SEO group in the Facebook search box. Also, I have a free SEO checklist, a step-by-step guide to improving the SEO on your website. Just head to therecipeforseosuccess.com and sign up to my newsletter to get your free copy. And finally, if you're ready to get stuck into some serious SEO, why not take the 10-day SEO challenge, a short course that takes you through the first 10 steps any website needs to improve their ranking and drive more conversions. You'll find a link to the challenge on the Recipe for SEO Success homepage. I'll also include links to all 3 resources on the episode notes for this show. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah, you have to be inventive and come up with wacky ideas. The next question is a bit more nitty-gritty. It's a question from Matt, who's one of the students on my course. And he asks, what role do spelling mistakes play in SEO? So there's been an email going around in Australia, maybe not America, saying it's one of those kind of spammy type that says, you've got spelling mistakes. This means Google's going to give you a black mark, and if you don't correct them, I can correct those spelling mistakes for $100. So he's interested to know, would Google really chastise a site or lower its ranking because it had typos?
We have never observed a correlation between misspellings. Let me correct that. Between a small normal number of misspellings, typos, grammatic errors, and lower rankings in Google, nor have we been able to correlate perfect grammar and flawlessly edited content with higher rankings in Google. That being said, if you find that your audience is picky, or if they are getting turned off by it, Google is using kind of this system whereby they measure engagement, retention and recidivism, people coming back to a site many, many times, and visiting again and again, typing in and searching for it. They are looking at amplification rates, so people who get to a site and then go share that out. And they're looking at browse rate, people who get to a web page and then browse more and more pages on that site. All of those metrics, which they get from Chrome and they get from Android and probably some other places, all of that data goes into figuring out, are you a good website that searchers seem to enjoy? And, are you doing a compelling job of serving your visitors? And if spelling and typo stuff is detracting from that, yes, it can have a very mild but negative impact on you. So, yep, that meme sounds totally wrong to me. And I would not pay that person $100. They'll probably put malware on your site. But that being said, anything you do that improves the user experience and the happiness of people who get to your page does help you long-term in Google.
And so next is a question from Robert. And he asks, why is it so hard to rank for a keyword with a new page when you're already ranking for it with an existing one?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So we've seen that happen, but we've also seen the opposite happen, where essentially you have a page that's ranking well for a keyword on your website. You produce a new page, and the new page starts ranking, and sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you're like, oh no, I didn't want this one blog post that I just wrote that's kind of short-term and just interesting to my blog audience to replace this great landing page that I had ranking for this keyword. And Google associates not just individual pages, but whole websites with topics and content and keyword searches. And so sometimes if you produce a newer piece, Google might think, oh, that's the most recent one. I should put that first. Mm-hmm. So we've seen the opposite problem sometimes, Robert. That being said, if you are experiencing this challenge, what's probably happening is that Google thinks that the old page, the pre-existing page, has the kinds of ranking signals and provides the kind of searcher experience that they want. So meaning it's got good links, it does a good job with keyword targeting, and the content seems to serve visitors well, so it has a bunch of these signals. Sometimes you'll see Google kind of test it out, like the first day you publish a new piece. They'll put it on page 1 for a little while, and then if it doesn't seem like searchers are happy and engaged with that, they'll pull it down again. And so a lot of times one of the things that I think more advanced SEOs will try to do is kind of that if at first you don't succeed philosophy, where if you target a keyword, you produce some content, and Google tries it out, it doesn't seem to be working, you try it again, right? You produce another piece of content on that topic. I would urge you to think, if you are producing that new content and it's not resonating, is there some discordance or disconnect between what searchers actually want and what you're providing? And that happens a lot, right? Because sometimes what a searcher wants is different from what your business interests are. So, searcher wants information, you want to sell them something. You got to meet in the middle, right? You got to provide that information.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And if you're writing a really good how-to blog, be genuine about that. Make that just a really good blog, and maybe don't necessarily sell hard in that. Just hope that they then go off to your sales landing page. Don't whack a great ad in the middle, or cheat. Don't cheat and pretend it's a how-to article, and then they get there and not at all.
If you've got a great how-to article, I think one thing you absolutely can do is say, want more great stuff like this, and ask for an email address, right? Or a connection to Facebook or whatever it is. And that's a great way to get someone's to start to be in your world.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned Facebook there, which is a fantastic segue into my next question, which is a huge question. So, we could talk about this next thing for about an hour, which is the classic, how does social media impact SEO, or does it? And which social media channel is the best one to invest my time in to improve my ranking?
The shortest answer I can give to this, and then we can get into longer stuff too, but the shortest answer I can give is, for the most part, with a couple notable exceptions, and we can talk about those, social media does not directly influence your search engine rankings. However, there are lots of indirect things that can happen because of social media, which can have a positive impact on your rankings. So that's a convoluted statement, but that's the truth, right? That's how it is. So when Google says, no, Facebook shares don't influence rankings in Google, you can be like, yeah, technically, I guess they're being accurate, or I guess they're not saying something dishonest, although the real truth behind it is, let's say a piece of content does do really well on Facebook. Well, Google's almost definitely going to index it. They're definitely going to see all those people who are visiting it using Chrome and Android. Right? They are definitely going to see what the engagement rate is like, and they'll see the sharing and amplification rate. They'll also see all the people who potentially pick it up and link to it, the media, the press, the bloggers, the forums, the discussion that takes place that all links to it. And those signals, not necessarily the direct Facebook shares, but those signals will almost certainly have a positive ranking effect. And we see this again and again, that things that tend to do really well on Facebook tend to rank really well in Google. And so it's an indirect impact, but it is a positive one. And so I wouldn't say, take Facebook off the table. I don't care about it at all. You should try and make some content, especially if that's something you're passionate about and good at. Go for it, right? Make some content that you believe can do really well on Facebook and get picked up and become, the center of your industry or niche on social media.
And now I know that there's some thinking that Google Plus obviously is kind of a good platform, because if someone circles you, or then with personalization, your content is going to come up with their feed. And the same can kind of be said for Twitter, because lots of people hate Google Plus, and lots of people don't understand Twitter, and they just want to do Facebook. So I think it's about kind of where your audience is and what you also enjoy, because you've got to enjoy it to a degree, especially if you're a small business and you've only got a little bit of time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that it is almost never the case that someone does really well at a platform or a form of content or form of marketing that they hate. I tried Snapchat. I just can't get into it. It's just not for me. I don't enjoy it. It's not interesting and useful. I don't really like marking up photos and having them expire after 24 hours and the network. It's not for me. Like, I doubt I'm ever going to be great at it because I'm just not passionate about it. It just so I think that's totally fine to say, these are things that I like. These are things that I do not like. You know what? I'm going to concentrate on the things I like, try and get really good at those, use those as my marketing channels. And if it happens to be the case that you hate Twitter, yeah, fine, ignore it. I think you do bring up two excellent points, and those are the big, the two notable exceptions that I mentioned, right? One is Twitter. Twitter has a partnership with Google, whereby Twitter and tweet results will show up directly in the search box, especially for names and events and hashtags and other things like that. So if you're doing something in the world of fresh content, or your topics are consistently in the zeitgeist of what's being discussed in social media, even if you're not passionate about Twitter, maybe find someone who is, because that's pretty important, and those can outrank all the rest of the organic results. With Google Plus, yes, look, I mean, in your ideal world, the best way to do social media for SEO would be to get everyone who's ever going to search for anything in your topic to circle you on Google Plus, because then you'll rank number one. You'll just, right? Well, not number one always, but you will constantly get a personalized boost for every piece of content you share on Google Plus for everyone who follows you. So if your audience is even at all on Google Plus, could pay to be there at least a little bit. It's getting a little less powerful. That personalization is not as strong as it was, say, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's still there, but not as strong. And we're also seeing, generally speaking, in most niches, with a few exceptions, travel, photography, marketing, blogging, that Google Plus is getting less engagement.
The next one is from Jason Stevens, and he asks, how will live streaming affect SEO?
There are certain forms of live streaming that will have real-time search, and that Google's going to do something like what they do with Twitter, where they try and recognize those. You could see that here in the United States yesterday. President Obama made his State of the Union address, and during that time, if you searched for SOTU, right, State of the Union, or anything like that, you would get this real-time broadcast from YouTube right above the fold. So Google's doing a little bit on that front right now for streaming content, and I think we might see more innovation on that front long term. But one thing I would say for now, for sure, is streaming content, almost always, if it's compelling and people want to see it again, record that stuff, put it up on your website, right? Make it accessible through YouTube so that people can search either YouTube or Google and find it and then get to you. That's a great form of content long term. So
this is an important question for Australian businesses. Australia is only so big and there's only so much of an audience here, and a lot of businesses have tried and break through into the US market because there's so many of you Americans.
Yeah, that's true.
But what are your tips for an Australian business wanting to rank in the US Google?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that can certainly help you. One is almost definitely earning links from US-based websites and US-based businesses and organizations and people. Another one for sure is going after engagement from the US. So you can earn. There's no particular bias in the world of social media or email or content marketing or those kinds of things that's country specific. It's really just language groups. And so whether you're in the UK or New Zealand or South Africa or wherever you might be, targeting the US is equally easy through those channels. And so I would urge you to try and earn traffic. If you start to get engagement and traffic and attention from American visitors, Google will almost certainly recognize that and then start to put you in the results. And we've actually seen, there have been a few cases, I can't recall them off the top of my head, but we've seen a few Australian websites do really well in the google.com US results in the last year or two. The strategy of intentionally making your website non-geographic specific, so not using a .com.au, but using a .com or a .net. Darren Rouse, right, from Problogger, who's based in Australia, uses a .net, does very well worldwide for the English language audiences. So that's certainly a strategy.
Yeah. Okay, great. And would you say that hosting plays any part in that? Like, would you think that it's better to host in the US, or do you really don't think it makes any difference?
I've heard it's cheaper to host in the US. It makes a small amount of difference for two reasons. One is geo-targeting, right? Google does look at where you're hosted as a small signal of geo-targeting. Although the problem with being hosted in the US is it's tougher for you then to reach Australian audiences and be listed in .com.au. But the advantage could be a speed one, right? So if you're hosted in the US, you're going to be faster, generally speaking, for American visitors. That portends all sorts of good things, including a slight bump in Google's rankings from the speed boost they give, and better engagement rates as people are very picky about their download speeds.
And I mean, I think from my own experience, all the good stuff you do to your Australian site kind of will influence your accessibility to American audiences. I've seen my own site doing better and better. I haven't deliberately targeted the US. I have got a .com.au, but I think, just generally as you do more stuff, it all has a positive benefit overall. This is a question from DMOX90 on Twitter. And he asked, do weak pages on your site damage strong pages? Should I kill all my weak pages? So is it better to have like 10 super awesome pages rather than 100 crappy ones?
So the way that I would think about this is not in terms of, link metrics or page authority or stuff like that. The way I think about it is in terms of visitor happiness and searcher success rate. So if you have a bunch of pages that the content's mediocre to poor, maybe a lot of it is copied content from elsewhere, maybe a bunch of it is content that is very thin, right, that just is not high quality. And you can see that in your visitor analytics, right? The people who reach those pages tend to bounce more often. They tend not to browse further in the site. Those pages get very little sharing, almost no links, all that kind of stuff. I would kill them. Kill them. However, if you're telling me, hey, I have a bunch of pages that are really good quality and the people who do reach them enjoy them, the problem is they're just not very popular. They don't get reached very much. They don't have very many links pointing to them. Not many people visit them. I would tell you to keep those. Those are the kind that over time, as you grow the influence and authority of your site, will benefit from being on your domain.
Yeah.
So I would not kill those. I would kill the ones that have poor user and usage metrics.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our specific questions, and this one is more of a general one. And again, I know that you actually recently posted an article about this, so what you thought were going to be the big things of 2016. So I'm going to put you on the spot and say, as a small business, what's the one thing you'd be concentrating on in 2016? What do you think is going to be the biggest thing for SEO?
So I think there's two ways to kind of address that. One is to say, what's the one thing that, is big in 2016 that I should really be doing? And the other one is, what's the new big thing in 2016? Yes. Yeah. And so, I would say that there's nothing new that in my mind overshadows the importance of what's been important the last 5-6 years in SEO, right? Getting good keyword research, solid content, an accessible site, and good link worthiness and sharing and amplification. I think what's new, if you have not already done it, and probably you have, but hope, just in case, is mobile friendliness. Mm-hmm. Another thing to be thinking about, if you have a mobile application, right, an app that someone can download from the App Store, I would think very carefully about your strategy there. There's now new ways to get included in Google's mobile results with your app from the Play Store or from iTunes. And then the other thing that I'd say is it may pay in 2016 if you have an audience that is using apps, using the app stores, heavily on mobile. Consider how you can get your brand, your name, your business into apps that may be popular. So even if you don't have an app yourself, if you say, oh, there's a very popular app that does things in my niche. How do I partner with them? How do I buy ads from them? How do I get mentioned by them? How do I get included in their app? How do I optimize my listing inside their app, whatever it is? I think those are good things to be thinking about in 2016, just because that mobile world is going pretty nuts.
So app barnacling. Is that right? Barnacle app.
Barnacling. Yeah, there you go.
Cool. We'll call it mobile limpetness or limpets or something like that. Anyway, now this question is moving away from SEO, and it's from Sejo George on Twitter, and he asks, this is a question about you. What's the biggest business decision or mistake that you wish you could go back and change?
Yeah, so the answer is pretty much universally the same. So in 2011, maybe even 2010, I started Moz. This was when I was CEO. I started Moz down this path of building kind of an all-in-one tool and building it all together, right? So you could do all your SEO and your social media and your content and your analytics all in one place. And I thought that was going to be, really important as SEOs started doing all of those things. Well, turns out kind of dead wrong on two fronts. One, on the engineering side, it's incredibly hard to ask a team, especially a small team as we were at Moz at that time, to try and build a massive, complicated application that takes multiple years of work and never gets released to anyone in that time.
Yeah.
So that's a really poor way to do engineering. Iterative software engineering is a much, much better way to go. If we were going to do that, if that was going to be a successful strategy, I think it had to be released piece by piece by piece and then upgraded and improved. The second strategic mistake that was really big there was assuming that I knew how the industry was going to go. In fact, what ended up happening is SEO stuck to SEO, professional social media marketers stuck to social media, professional content marketers and content strategists stuck to doing content, email marketers stuck to doing email, business intelligence and analytics ended up serving that audience. And so, you know what? This all-in-one thing was not the panacea that I hoped it would be. So that's a move I really wish I could take back and instead concentrate on, hey, let's build a best-in-class product just for SEOs. And then maybe later, we'll build a good one for social media marketers and another good one for content and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think everybody dreams of an all-in-one tool, though, so I can totally understand why you went that way. I'd love that, but hey, maybe that's just me. Okay, the last question, and this one's a bit silly, but I was asked to ask it, so be prepared. Okay. When I told my fan base that I was interviewing you, there were a lot of swoons and hearts and love Rands. So you're kind of a bit of a heartthrob in the SEO world. I was going to say like the Justin Bieber of SEO, but I thought that was a bit rude. How about the Brad Pitt of SEO? Is that a bit better? How do you feel about that? Are you aware of that, or is it you just ignore all that kind of stuff?
I think it's one of those things where I'm remarkably funny looking in person. So I think it's just that I photograph well or something. I don't know where that comes from. No, I think it's fun. It's totally fine. I have not encountered it ever in person, really, but I've seen a little bit of it online. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. It all seems in really good faith and good fun, right? I have not had weird stalkers or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's directly related to the mustache. So if you ever want to stop I think just snip those two side bits off and it's all over.
It's gone. Okay.
Thank you so much for sparing the time and you've made it really easy and lovely. So thank you for that.
I'm thrilled to hear it, Kate. Thank you for having me, and best of luck to you and everyone in your audience.
I hope you enjoyed the Recipe for SEO Success show. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, please don't forget to leave a rating or review. Your review will help others learn more about SEO, and I'll give you a shout out on the show. Now you can head to the Recipe for SEO Success website if you'd like to leave comments or thoughts on the blog post for this episode. Happy SEOing!